Before I went to this event, I didn't know what the acronym DACA even stood for. I learned that it stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. I also didn't really understand all the controversy surrounding it. I knew that the Trump administration had rescinded DACA policies, but I didn't really know what that meant. The most I knew about it was that it negatively impacted a lot of immigrants, especially from Latin American countries. Overall, I wasn't that knowledgeable, and I'm still not that knowledgeable about immigration issues. The event was set up kind of like a press conference. There was a panel with like 4 people who like led the meeting, and on the other side of the room, there were like a bunch of administrators, and there was kind of like a dialogue that took place between the people on the panel, the administrators, and the students, a lot of whom were DACA recipients. There were 4 people on the panel. There was a lawyer who kind of explained the legality of like DACA policies, which kind of made it a lot easier for people like me who didn't really know what DACA was. There was also a professor from NKU, and he's also an immigrant, so he kind of offered like a lot of insight and like advice to people. Like when people from the audience would talk about like being scared as a DACA recipient or being scared for people they know who are DACA recipients, he kind of like drew from his own experiences. And there were also 2 members of the Student Government Association who kind of like led it and guided everything. Most of the meeting was like an open discussion between the panel, the administration, and the audience. About half of the audience were immigrants, and they kind of led the discussion. And the overall purpose of the meeting was to convince NKU and NKU's administration to make a statement promising to protect DACA students. I felt like a mix of emotions throughout the event. There was one white student, and he like stood up and started ranting about the administration not like acting to protect DACA students. At one point, he started swearing and being really disrespectful to one of the administrators, and 2 girls who were in the Student Government Association, I think one of them was an immigrant, they actually stood up and they told him to stop because they said, "You're hurting the cause." And like when this was happening, I felt kind of angry because he was like taking the platform away from people who are actually affected by DACA policies because he's not an immigrant. But he was the only person who was like disrespectful and obnoxious during the open discussion. Like most of the other speakers were immigrants, and they like talked about their personal experiences and the experiences of people they know. One girl talked about immigrating from Peru. She said she was 5 when she immigrated here, and she was a DACA recipient, but now she's a citizen. But she was saying how if she would have been deported because of the Trump administration rescinding a lot of DACA policies, she would go back to Peru not knowing any of the customs, barely knowing any Spanish, and it would just be like really difficult for her. And that was kind of eye-opening because I had never really thought of it that way, to have to go to another country when you were like basically raised here and you grew up here and went to school here and were educated here.